Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. And in this video, we're going to talk about the first rule of velocity banking, which was inspired by Fight Club. It's a movie from the late 90s, and the first rule of Fight Club, if you ever watched the movie, is you don't talk about Fight Club. Now, luckily, we can talk about velocity banking, and the first rule of velocity banking is just doing the exact opposite of what Dave Ramsey teaches you, which is to have no savings. And Dave Ramsey, the number one finance guru in America, the first thing he teaches you to get out of debt is save $1,000 for your starting emergency fund. And we ain't going to do that, right? We're going to do the exact opposite, which is to have zero savings because that's probably the fastest way to pay off debt, right? So now I have a budget here of what we call the average American, and then another column here for the velocity banker. So the only difference between the average American and the velocity banker is that we're going to make sure that this savings number is going to go to zero, even though like 1,300 savings a month is actually pretty good. In fact, that actually satisfies Dave Ramsey's emergency fund baby step one. And then now we're going to go the opposite direction and say, no thanks, Dave, right? So we also assume the same income. Now, before we actually do the velocity banking demonstration, quick review, what is velocity banking? All it is a debt payoff strategy using a line of credit as your main tool, right? That's velocity banking. And you need two things to do velocity banking. Number one, you need a budget. So your budget is essentially your debt attack plan, and you have to make sure you list every single debt that you have, right? You see that we have four debts here, and then all of our other expenses that are not debt go here, right? Things you have to pay for. Insurance, gas, food, I just lump them up $2,000 a month, right? Now, if it were my real life, I'd probably be a little more detailed, but because this is just for demonstration purposes, we'll just leave this at this nice 2,000 number. So, so let's go ahead and go to step two, which is we need a line of credit as our main operating account. So most often, I always like to talk about home equity lines of credit because anytime you offer collateral to a lender, they'll give you better rates and lower interest rates. So if you don't know what home equity is, that just means the value of your home minus any debts tied to your home, right? And let's just assume that we have a $35,000 home equity line of credit. It's almost like a $35,000 credit card based on your home equity, right? So now all we got to do, okay, is just do our budget like this and then create our cash flow number, which is income minus expenses. So these two numbers, savings and cash flow, seem very similar in the beginning, but once we make our adjustments, our goal is to make this number as big as possible, and we can only do that if our savings is zero, right? We're going to do the exact opposite of what most Americans are trained to do. Now, this home equity line of credit currently has a $15,000 balance, right? And we'll assume that it has the interest baked in. So here we have two credit cards, and maybe we're at the very end of that 0% interest period and we got to pay them off. So let's just do this. First, let's go over what happens to our home equity line of credit when we do velocity banking. So the actual implementation of the velocity banking strategy is you put your entire paycheck into the line of credit and then your expenses out, and then your cash flow will decrease the balance of the home equity line of credit, right? Now, when we put our entire paycheck into that home equity line of credit, what happens? Well, it does two things. It satisfies the minimum monthly payment, and then it decreases the interest because when you put your entire paycheck, the interest is going to be calculated by the average daily balance, so that balance is going to be as low as possible. So we essentially have two goals. Goal number one is we're going to increase this cash flow number as much as possible in the beginning. And then goal number two is we're going to minimize interest by making the average daily balance as low as possible, right? So that's the beauty of this strategy. Entire paycheck into line of credit, expenses out. And you could see just by making this HELOC our main operating account, we went from 1,300 savings to 1,600 in cash flow. Now let's even increase this number even further by moving these two credit cards, right? So let's go ahead. So 15 plus 15 is 30,000, right? So we have a 30,000 balance. And because we moved these two credit cards, Guess what happens? They're paid off. This goes to zero. This goes to zero. So now, because again, 1,300 savings originally, which is actually pretty good. We already, with that number, we pretty much achieved baby step one, according to Dave Ramsey. And now we're going to piss off Dave Ramsey by going to zero savings. But look at how much we increased this cash flow number by 2 grand, or not by 2 grand, by an additional almost 1 grand. So it's $2,100. And now what we're going to do is just do the strategy. Paycheck in, expenses out, and it's going to go down 2,100. Paycheck in, expenses out. Now, let me go ahead and put in the formulas, and I put in all the same formulas every single time. So, next month, next month's balance is previous month's balance plus previous month's interest minus our cash flow number, which is this number right here, 2129.59. And then we take the average daily balance right here, average, multiply by 0.09, which is the interest rate, 0.09, and then you divide by 12 because this is the annual interest and we want the monthly, right? And then we just copy and paste this formula and we just stop until it's red, right? So 15 months to pay off $30,000 of debt, okay? So 15 months, 30K of debt, right? Easy, 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 right? 30K of debt, 15 months. Ooh, that was so good. All right, so now what we're going to do is figure out uh, what we're going to do with the mortgage. So first of all, we need to know what the balance of the mortgage is after 15 months, and we have this thing called calculator.net. So we go to calculator.net, loan amortization. We could figure out what the balance is just by putting in the information. So 30 years, 3.25 interest rate, calculate. I know I'm going pretty fast here, but I'm kind of sleepy too. At 15 months, we got to figure out what the balance is. So let's go to 15. So it's 194, right? 194. Okay. So we have two choices. Now we're gonna have $2,100. What we can do is just move it from our savings into that mortgage. So overpay 2,100 directly every single month into our mortgage, which will certainly help pay off the loan faster. But let's ask ourselves, is that realistic and do people actually do that? No, people don't actually do that because if they did do that, then most of Americans would pay off a 30-year mortgage in 5 to 10 years. But it takes us 52 years to pay off a mortgage because we're refinancing every 5 to 7 years, right? Bank sends us a letter, hey, you could you could refinance and either get a lower monthly payment or you could pull out the equity because you deserve to do who knows what, right? But what I'm saying is that even though this is the default option of overpaying your savings to loan, you're not going to do it. So one of the ways that you can overpay is just transfer to the line of credit. So for example, you go from 194 to maybe 184, and then just rinse and repeat and pay off that 10 grand. So you're moving parts of the principal. So 194. What's in fact, you just move. I think the most ideal amount is just moving your paycheck. So that'll be 189K. And then let's go here. So let's say we move $5,000 to the principal here. Okay, how long does it take to pay that off? 2 months, right? Now, one of the things I want to emphasize is that going from 194 to 189K, according to the bank schedule, is going to take a long time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 months, right? 16 months versus 2 months. You pick what how long it'll take. Now, here's the other thing too. This will actually decrease a little bit faster because we're still making the monthly payment in addition to paying off the principal. So the whole point of this is to actually help you maintain control your cash flow or control of your cash flow and not be scared that you're dumping all of your money into line of credit or yeah, dumping your all of your money, overpaying the loan, whereas you could just do it in your line of credit. Now, psychologically, it's much easier, even though the effect is the same, right? Like psychology is very important when it comes to money. So, and Dave Ramsey talks about this too, and this is something I agree with Dave Ramsey. He talks about why you do the debt snowball. It's not because it's more financially effective. It's because you actually feel good about paying off a debt, right? Now, when we do this, what we call chunking strategy of moving the line of credit, or I'm sorry, the loan to the line of credit and paying it off with our maximum cash flow, I am going to say one thing. It's not that it doesn't work. It's just a lot of people I think oversell it and saying this is way better than overpaying your savings, your mortgage, which it's not. The only difference that I see is that you're actually going to do it, right? I talk about this from my own life experience. Now, luckily, if you want to keep rinsing, repeating over and over again, I guess you can, but it's good. There's going to be a little bit of inaccuracies when you do it this way. So one of the ways that you can do it is just by using this velocity banking calculator provided by Renatus, which is a educational company where I first learned about velocity banking back in 2017, and I started becoming an independent contractor marketer I think last year and started receiving commission for selling their products. But so if you ever want this calculator, just be a Renault student and I'll get some commission. Full disclosure. Okay, so now all we got to do is just fill in the information, right? So 200,000 200,000. The balance is 194.22. And then the interest rate is 3.25. Not 325. Oh my goodness, what am I doing? 3.25, 30 years. And then what is the payment? 870.41. And then 9% interest rate, $5,000 of income, I think $2,000 of expenses. So it's everything except for the loan we're trying to pay off. So one thing I want to comment is that if we put in a very low amount, like 5,000, you'll see that the interest here is 21 grand. Now, here's the thing about the calculator too. Your results will vary because the calculator kind of always assumes that your expenses, your income is biweekly, but your expenses all happen on day one, which is kind of not realistic, right? But it's not going to make that much of a difference. But there is some variations you'll have in your own situation and numbers. But one of the things I really want to emphasize, and I'm probably making another video about this because people um, didn't like when I say you don't put the whole mortgage into a line of credit. But let's say you did that. Take a look at this number: 6 years and $21,000 interest. If I put this whole thing into a line of credit, 194,974.22, look how much more interest that you pay, right? So we got to be careful when it comes to higher moving a higher interest loan or moving a low interest to a higher interest line of credit, right? We got to be careful about that. But if we do, same interest rate, 3.25, right? It's pretty much the same, right? I think you save a little bit more interest. But the point I'm trying to make is that chunking is very powerful in the sense that it doesn't really even matter what the interest rate is. So if I do 5,000, right? And then let's say that this is a 30%, so I'll do like 9% right now. So this is $21,000 of interest. Let's say I do a 30% credit card, okay? 6.2 years and 26,000, right? So it's not that much of a difference compared to putting the whole thing, even the line of credit, at 9%. Right? So that's people. This is very nuanced, and people don't really understand this. What they sometimes hear from the internet is, "Oh, put your entire mortgage in a line of credit," and they don't have a calculator like this or lessons. And I actually learned this from Renatus. One of the instructors talked about how chunking is almost like resistant to the line of credit interest rate. right? Like I literally did not know that until I took those classes. Anyways, so let's just go here and do the 9% interest rate. And then, so that's going to take 6 years. So do 15 divided by 12 plus 6. So 7.25 years, 230K debt free. So what's really amazing about this, again, it's not that you're mortgage free in 7 years. Your mortgage plus the HELOC plus the two credit cards debt free. Okay? And so now we're gonna every time I talk about paying off our mortgage off, we're gonna have something called rich people problems. So when we have all our paid off debts, then we're gonna have $3,000 of savings in month one, $6,000 of savings in month two, $9,000 of savings in month three, and then you're gonna have the same problems that rich people have. And if you ever talk to rich people with lots of money in their bank account, guess what their number one fear is? Like, why am I not investing this money? Oh my goodness, I'm losing to inflation, right? That's essentially rich people problem. So, it's a better problem to have than have all this debt and then freak out. Oh my goodness, like I have a $5,000 emergency and my savings, I need to do everything I can to hold on to our savings. And we're doing the exact opposite because we're going to make sure that we're in debt payoff mode. This becomes a big fat zero. Sorry, Dave Ramsey, the first rule of velocity banking is no savings, so we can't help you. Or we can't follow baby step one. And I know you'll get angry at me because I remember reading in your news website about if HELOCs are a good idea, and you didn't say no, you said heck no. How rude. I don't know if you remember that. That's from Full House TV show in the 90s. What a different time. You ever wonder, like, how in the 90s, Full House, San Francisco was considered like a working class, I guess a working class neighborhood, and now you got to be a tech gajillionaire to be able to buy a home. All right, well, that's it for today. So yeah, first rule of velocity banking: no savings, no thanks, Dave. So just want to reemphasize that this will always be zero if we're in debt payoff mode, and then once we pay off all our debt, we'll have rich people problems. So, good deal there. All right, have a great day, everybody, and we will speak next time.